to Mr. 96's Pop Reviews. My name is Mr. 96. I'm thankful for those of you who checked out my recent worst list, as I made good on my promise and got a new poster. I've been wanting to change my background for a while now, and with my attachment to superhero properties massively waning over the past 4 years, I wanted to move the Wonder Woman poster more to the side while filling that center spot with something more representative of me. This past month, I've been replaying Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the 5-year anniversary, and playing it again with 5 years of meta-knowledge as well as Torna prequel context reminded me why this is one of my favorite games of all time. But more than anything, it has my favorite soundtrack of all time in any medium, and with the third game that released last summer, I've been passionately listening to Xenoblade music throughout 2022, which is more than I can say for the actual popular music of the year. In recent years, I've noticed that I've been way too kind to songs that make my top 10 best lists. That's not to say that my top few songs weren't deserving, but I'd often give too much praise to the bottom half of the list even if I wasn't very passionate about it. So unlike previous years where all these songs will be at least an 8 out of 10, there are going to be a few 7s because that's more of an honest assessment of my feelings on this year's pop. Remember that these top 10 lists are all relative. Just because a song makes the top 10 doesn't mean all 10 of them reached a specific threshold of quality. So the top 10 of 1974 isn't the same thing as the top 10 of 1983. Once again, the guidelines. Top 60 of Hot 100, released no later than August, and cannot be on the 2021 Year in Hot 100 if it's released before September of 2021. But most importantly, this list is completely subjective. All these choices are my personal opinion, meaning you have every right to disagree with me, so I'll respect your opinion as long as you respect mine. And yes, this video is technically coming out in 2023, but symbolically, it's the finale to my 2022 season. So let's give a proper send-off by taking a look at the top 10 best hit songs of 2022. My number 10 slot was mostly a revolving door of random songs I couldn't commit to while writing this list, so after I finished my first draft, I decided to look through the year in Hot 100 to make sure I didn't miss anything. And in that goal to find a sleeper hit that would take this spot, I ended up picking one of the biggest songs of the year. But it's a song that actually got better once I gave it a chance. That if I can't be close to you, I'll settle for the ghost of you. I'm always hesitant when it comes to praising a Justin Bieber song. Artistically, I find a lot of his music to be pretty forgettable, and although I've liked several of his songs, he always has the capability of making crap like Yummy and Intentions. And that hesitance is partly why I slept on this song for most of the year. But as other songs that were originally on this list kept souring on me during the scripting process, I gave another listen to Ghost and realized it actually is a pretty good song. One of my biggest issues with Justin Bieber's music is his bland persona whenever he tries to sell himself as some sexy fuckboy. Whether he's a player or a happily married man, it just doesn't come across as genuine. Thankfully, Jon Bellion, who wrote and produced this song, decided to do none of that and instead wrote a song about a completely different topic. Youngblood thinks there's always tomorrow. Ghost is a song about dealing with the loss of a loved one, particularly family. Initially, I was scared this was going to go the Shawn Mendes route and disguise a manipulative romance track as some real-world PSA, but thankfully this one is played totally straight and stays focused on the subject matter. As I said before, Justin Bieber doesn't have the most charismatic personality, but the songs of his that work best are the ones that play into his insecurities. My favorite song of his is probably Where Are You Now? And besides the great production from Skrillex and Diplo, Justin Bieber's understated persona enhances the feeling of emotional confusion. It uses his weakness as a strength. And in a song about loss and family, Justin saying he'll settle for the ghost of you is believable as it plays into the bargaining stage of grief. And if you can't be next to me, your memory's ecstasy. As far as the instrumental goes, Jon Bellion has always been a mixed bag as a producer, but I think the beat works well enough for this kind of tune. It's somber, but the drums give it enough energy to be uplifting without completely undercutting the message. While this song may have been from Justin's 2021 album, it didn't really take off until 2022, but you know what? I'm glad it did. I miss you more than life. I miss you more than life. If you go to church. 2022 was a terrible year in my personal life as I've had to fight through depression, so although this was only an honorable mention at first, the appeal of this song soon became crystal clear to me.
Do you ever get a little bit tired of life, like you're not really happy but you don't wanna die?
I'm usually not into indie pop, but this one grew on me the more I reflected on it. Seriously, I've had to rewrite and revise this script multiple times figuring out where I'd place this. Numb Little Bug went viral through TikTok and is sort of seen as a Gen Z anthem. As someone born in 1996, I'm in a weird position where I'm right between millennial and Gen Z, so I don't exactly belong to either group. But regardless of generation, I could relate to this because of my past year. When I listened to this last week, here's how I reacted to the lyrics.
Do you ever get a little bit tired of life, like you're not really happy but you don't wanna die?
Yes. Yes to all. I'll admit that I heard this song earlier in the year and didn't think much of it at the time as I thought it was too on the nose, but after the hell I went through, this song definitely hits a different note. Does that mean it's automatically one of my favorites? It's not really my genre, but it went from not even being considered for the list to actually making it, so that's amazing in its own right. But yeah, for an artist I knew nothing about until this year, I think M. Byhold does a good job at being direct, but not too preachy. I've complained about the lack of new songs in 2022, but I appreciate this one as it peaked in the top 20 and ended up at number 32 on the year-end Hot 100. Overall, a nice little song that came at the right time. To M, thank you.
Like a numb little bug that's gotta survive, that's gotta survive. If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
2022 was such a nothing year in the US that it not only had holdover songs from 2021, but an old British song from 1985. At least that came in good taste. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I have no idea what this song even is. It charted because it was featured in Stranger Things, a show I don't watch, and it's by English singer Kate Bush, whom I never knew about before this year. And yes, that makes me a filthy casual on both fronts, but that ignorance on my end does make an impact on how I feel. The bright side is that I can listen to this song and appreciate it as a beautiful piece of 80s music. And unlike the retro shit we've been getting for the last couple decades, this one actually is from the 80s. From an analysis standpoint, I can't say much because I know so little of the artist. The music is relaxing and Kate's voice is nice. It's strange because it sounds exactly like what you think 80s music is like, yet I can't seem to compare it to any other song. I mean, the closest I can come up with is Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper, but even then, that's a massive stretch on my end. I have no idea why Kate Bush never had much American success compared to her home country. From what I've read, people say her style was too abstract compared to what Americans like, and she apparently didn't do live tours after the 70s. I may not be a music historian, but I find that to be a pretty weak excuse on America's part. A few years earlier, the Human League broke through in the States with this new wave music us Yanks weren't familiar with, and they were so successful, their sound ended up defining pop music for the entire decade. I know this was before the internet age where people can make music in their homes, but considering MTV became the way to promote music at the time, it's not as if Kate Bush was too unpop to be part of the second British invasion. Regardless, I'm glad Kate Bush is finally getting her recognition that's 4 decades overdue. Of course, I'm not the best person to give this song the justice it probably deserves, but I think it's neat, and in 2022, that's more than enough.
If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
It feels so weird to put this artist on the best list after all the disappointing shit he's been a part of this year, but I have to be honest as I listened to this song more than a few times on my own. It's one of the few songs on his new album that actually works, but even if it's an aberration, I'll take what I can get.
TSA just opened my book bag up and my chain hitting like.
Earlier this year, I said this was one of the best rap songs I heard in 2022. I don't know if that's still true, I haven't heard much rap outside of this, but at the very least, I still think it's a good listen. In my last video, I said that Jack Harlow's second album was a massive disappointment as he sounded complacent with little motivation to prove his worth. And while his song Nail Tech doesn't quite match up to his hardest bangers, it has a confident energy that's able to stand on its own. I've heard people refer to Jack Harlow as a Drake knockoff, and on his lesser tracks, that's absolutely true, but Nail Tech has a more upbeat and lively instrumental that you can bop your head to. Of course, it's not as hardcore as Ghost, but in terms of excitement level, it's at least close to Tyler Hero, so pretty good all around. While I'm not as high on this now as I was in the first half of 2022, I think it's easily the best song off Come Home the Kids Miss You. At the very least, I can appreciate this as its own thing that can stand alone even if the album itself is forgotten. And when it comes to the past 365 days, that's the biggest praise I can give Jack Harlow, so don't squander that opportunity.
If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
Back when YouTube actually showed dislikes on videos, I was a bit miffed that my review of Leave the Door Open got a few more dislikes than I expected. I don't know if it came from Bruno Mars fans or Anderson .Paak fans, but apparently some people must have been incredibly mad when I said Leave the Door Open was just good and not a masterpiece. Yeah, I said the song was good, but because I didn't think it was super amazing, apparently I'm hating. Well, those people are gonna have to eat their words as I praise their third single, which I think is better enough. If you listen very closely to this one, the song structure and melody are not all that different from Leave the Door Open. This one's a bit livelier with more edge to it, but it's still cut from the same mold. In past years I'd place this pretty high on my best list, but like I've said about retro-sounding songs, the mystique has worn out its welcome over the last decade, and sadly that includes Bruno Mars to some extent. That's not to say this song is lazy, not at all. These two guys specialize in honoring the classics, so any critiques I have are purely from a taste perspective rather than the actual writing or composition. On a technical level, it's an absolute masterclass of production, and if there's any part of this song that sticks with me, it has to be the bitch line in the pre-chorus.
I'm in disbelief. This bitch got me paying for trips.
In comparison to Leave the Door Open, something like this stands out more just because it has a decent sense of humor, which is refreshing as it's not just a complete pastiche of oldie music. Really, it's the edge of this song that stays with me more than any instrumental portion. And honestly, that's the biggest praise I could give to a Bruno Mars or Anderson .Paak song. It's retro and technically excellent, which is standard for the both of them, but they use that luxurious aesthetic to tell a funny story about how they blew their money on some gold digger. And with how my personal life has been, funny is at least a standout trait I can respect.
If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
I am not really an album listener. I tend to listen to songs on a case-by-case basis, plus I don't have the patience to sit through an hour of music I may or may not even like. I mean, yes, I have the patience to play 100-hour JRPGs, but that's a completely different thing. So because this next song was part of a major concept album, I won't have the full context to analyze this as deeply as some of my contemporaries would. But I'll do what I can because aesthetically, it sounds great. When it comes to any major artist with a diehard following, I feel completely out of my depth tackling their music as I know nothing about The Weeknd's Dawn FM album or its overall context. The most I can get is that he's in purgatory or something, and Jim Carrey is supposed to be a radio DJ narrator for this hell.
Don't you dare touch that dial, because like the song says, you are out of time.
But another reason I don't listen to concept albums is because I feel like I have to catch up on the plot like it's season 5 of a TV series or something, which I don't have the mental fortitude to invest in. From an outsider's perspective, Out of Time reminds me of Human Nature by Michael Jackson, and when I mentioned that to my patrons in a Discord call, they told me that Quincy Jones, who produced a lot of MJ's music, actually worked on Dawn FM. At first, I thought that meant he produced the song, but no, he just has a spoken word part on the album and did no production with the music. Still, Out of Time reminds me of a Quincy Jones song, and on that front, I enjoy the instrumental. And if I'm supposed to read this song as The Weeknd airing out his regrets, I think the Quincy Jones inspired instrumental really works. Abel's always been a great singer, and this darker edge to the 80s sound works better than purely glorifying the old times like most others do. I've always had a soft side for the more subdued MJ tracks on Thriller and Bad, so as someone out of the loop, I can give my props to The Weeknd in those regards.
Better too late to make your mind out of time.
If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
Okay, now we get to the songs this year that I actually listened to and thoroughly enjoyed on my own. Even if I weren't making these videos, I'd absolutely groove to this song because what else are you going to do?
Me la voy a llevar a toa pa' un VIP, ey. Saluden a Titi, vamos a tirarnos.
Bad Bunny has been famous worldwide for a number of years now, but in the last couple years, he's really made himself an A-list artist in the US market. Seeing as I'm an absolute noob in the context of Latin music, I feel like I have to do extensive research every time I analyze a song, but I'm glad I did because I learned a few things. With how popular reggaeton has been for the last decade, I would make a fool of myself if I tried to act knowledgeable about the subject, but I don't need to do that here as this song is technically not reggaeton. This song comes from a Dominican genre known as dembow, which has Jamaican dancehall origins. Unfortunately, the name originates from a song of the same name, which was incredibly homophobic and compared sodomy to supporting colonialism. Honestly, that alone makes supporting the genre feel kinda dirty, but Bad Bunny himself is not that kind of guy, so that makes it a bit of an easier pill to swallow. Also, this samples an old song called No Te Puedo Olvidar by Dominican artist Anthony Santos, which itself sounds incredibly beautiful and makes a great base for a song. As for Titi Me Preguntó itself, I think it's a banger and it works incredibly well for what it sets out to do.
Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias.
The title line translates to Auntie Asked Me, which in the chorus is talking about how Bad Bunny's aunt asks him if he has lots of girlfriends. Lyrically, the song is what you expect in that it's him bragging about how many women he sleeps with, but the song also comes with its own twist. In the second half, the mood is a lot more dour as the instrumental becomes less lively, and according to the translation, his aunt looks down on him for his player lifestyle and tries to get him to settle down, but due to his own trust issues, he can't get himself to have a long-term relationship. I will admit the darker second half threw me off at first, but with the context, I appreciate it much more now, so overall, massive thumbs up from me.
If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
For years, I had always seen Lil Nas X as the ultimate shit poster who managed to troll a bunch of people to the top of the charts. But if there were any song that educated me on him as a person, it's this one.
I want someone love me. I need.
About a year ago, I talked about how it was cool that his song Montero topped the charts while being unambiguously gay. With That's What I Want, it's a similar setup to Montero in that it's a song about being gay, but this one has more of a sad and tragic angle to it. On the surface, it's a straightforward song about Lil Nas X looking for love.
Yeah, that fro black boy with the gold teeth. Your dark skin looking at me like you know me.
A love for a very specific type of hot guy, but love nonetheless. But context is always key when it comes to any song. For a gay black man, a simple love song is not as simple for him as it is for you or me. While it may have been the lewd and rude Call Me By Your Name song that was titled after his first name, Montero, That's What I Want is the song that dives into Montero as a person. Speaking as someone who's also minority, if you think minority races can't be more homophobic than religious white people, you would be wrong. Like I said, Montero was a song by Lil Nas X, but That's What I Want is a song by Montero Lamar Hill. I also love the music video for showing his heartbreak when he learns the guy he had a fling with is actually married and has a kid. When he ends the chorus with That's What I Fucking Want, that is coming from a real place as this song is one of the few times in which Lil Nas X presents himself as vulnerable. This is Lil Nas X's best song so far. It's excellent in its music production, and it's a very well-written personal piece that shows his softer side. I loved this song the moment I heard it, and that hasn't changed a bit.
So in love, that's what I fucking want.
If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
When I started making this list, I originally put this at around number 7, but then it jumped to number 4 upon re-listening to it, before finally jumping to where it is now. Then, when I began to write about it in my script, I ended up typing so many lines as the song had that much emotional significance to it. While most of us in the West enjoy foreign music just for how it sounds, context is still important to understand even if we don't know the language. And for this song, the context surrounding it means everything.
Was it honestly the best? Cause I just wanna see the next. 부지런히 지나온.
While it may have taken the West several years to understand the BTS phenomenon, I've had one question lingering in my mind for years. How much longer would BTS last? It's a legitimate question, as for those not familiar with South Korean laws, men between the ages of 18 and 28 must serve about 18 months in the military. For any K-pop boy band, it's inevitable that members will come and go for service time. You could have a lengthy multi-year hiatus where the group serves at the same time like Big Bang, or you could do what most groups do and have individual members stagger their dates so that the group can continue but with 1 or 2 fewer members at any moment. With BTS, they've held off their enlistment dates due to a new law that allows certain K-pop stars to postpone until they're 30, and with Jin having turned 30 and leaving for the military last month, the hiatus has essentially begun. Their plans are for a 2025 reunion, meaning their enlistment dates will be throughout 2023 and 2024. But if they were going to give us a send-off, then I think this was a really good one.
다들 언제부턴가 널 안해 우리 최고라고.
Musically, it's a more subdued song than what BTS usually releases, but I've always liked their more emotional songs, especially the ones in Korean. One of my problems with BTS's American hits is that they're compromises in that they have to sing in all English using buzzword catchphrases. But diehard members of ARMY will tell you that their more lyrical songs are the ones they prefer. In Yet to Come, the song plays as a look back at the past and a look forward to the future. From a meta perspective, it represents their time together as a group and how they'll have to say goodbye for now. And the part that symbolizes it best is how Jin is used. One advantage about K-pop over American pop groups is line distribution. With many members in a group, you have to split up the lines in a satisfying manner. Unlike NSYNC, who just gave Justin and JC all the solo parts, or the Pussycat Dolls, who were just a Nicole Scherzinger vanity project. In Yet to Come, you have 2 main verses and 2 pre-choruses where the individual members get to shine. The first verse is the vocalist verse, where V and Jungkook sing, and the second verse is the rap verse, where Suga, RM, and J-Hope all have their moment in the sun. The 2 pre-choruses are left to Jimin and Jin, but to my pleasant surprise, it's Jin who actually gets the first pre-chorus.
너의 마음속 깊은 어딘가 여전한 소년이 있어.
This is a big deal because Jin usually gets the least amount of lines in the group, but Jin getting a solo part early puts him in the spotlight, which is fitting seeing as he's the first one to leave for service. Perhaps it's just a coincidence and I'm making something out of nothing, but I think it's fascinating that Jin has about as many lines as Jimin in this song, especially since Jimin usually has as many lines as Jungkook and V. There's much more I can talk about, but I've gone on long enough. Yet to Come is a beautiful song that represents a goodbye for now, but not the end. BTS has been together for about a decade, so I know their fans, including casual ones like me, will happily await their return in a few years. But before we get to number 1, let's go over the honorable mentions and non-eligible songs that didn't quite make the list.
Dog, player, I get it.
I like the concept of this song. The original Hound Dog was popularized by Elvis, even though it was originally recorded by a black woman in Big Mama Thornton, so Doja Cat is essentially reclaiming the original song. Rest in peace to Shanka Ducare, the actress who played Big Mama Thornton in the Elvis movie, as well as in this song and music video.
Never take a L no more. Never take a damn thing slow.
I'm of the opinion that Never Gonna Give You Up is a fantastic song even without the rickrolling context, and Young Gravy proves it. In a year of lazy sampling, this was arguably the best use of it.
Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I knew you what I need.
From online discourse, it seems you either like this song or think it's overrated critic bait. Personally, I think it's a fine song and nothing more, so take it how you will. I will say Bad Habit is much better than Bad Habits, but then again, plenty of people were better than Ed Sheeran in 2022.
Turn up the music, turn down the lights.
I was about to put this on the list proper, but as someone who's not a Lizzo fan, the verses are just more of the same Lizzo badass bitch shtick. Still, it's the best of the retro disco songs because it comes from someone who actually respects and understands the genre and its black roots.
Heads Carolina, tails California. Maybe she'd fall for a boy from South Georgia.
Hey, I can like country music when it works. While I may not have nostalgia for the original Heads Carolina, Tails California, I can appreciate Cole Swindell's love for 90s country, which he absolutely sells. Plus, I can't hate a song about a guy meeting a girl with a similar taste in music to him. Now let's go over the non-eligible songs that I really liked from 2022, but since I can't just throw the entire Xenoblade Chronicles 3 soundtrack on here, I'll give you a few pop songs instead.
When I move, my body hands it up when I move.
You have no idea how fucking significant this is. Kara are one of the greatest K-pop groups of all time, and this is their first comeback in nearly 7 years, 3 years after the tragic death of Guhara, who was the face of the group. Kara means so much to me, and to see all the members come back under a new record label for their 15th anniversary as well as honor their beloved friend made me emotional. Rest in peace, Hara. This is the best Super Junior has sounded in 4 years. When the group fully reunited in 2019 with Gyu-hyun's return, I felt like their first 2 comeback albums weren't as great as their peak years, but Mango is prime Suju, which reminded me why they're my favorite K-pop group of all time.
Hey, why so serious? 보이는 거 그대로 믿어봐. Hey.
ITZY is normally very hit or miss with me, but when they make a song I like, I'll be playing them on loop. As for their best songs, I still prefer Wannabe and Mafia in the Morning, but this one I definitely enjoyed. So to wrap up 2022, symbolically, it's finally time we talk about the best this year had to offer.
If you go to church, if she ain't got a butt, fucking get it to you. Yeah.
One thing that's different about my channel compared to my contemporaries is that I have a history of listening to K-pop. Though lately, I haven't been keeping up with every new song on a daily basis, but considering my past reviews of the genre on this channel, I'd like to think I know at least a little bit of what I'm talking about. In the last couple years, there were a few times I included some songs by K-pop acts in my best lists, but in hindsight, I rated them way too high as they soured on me over time. I'm fairly confident about this one. Based on my charting conditions, this one was barely eligible for this year as it released late last year, but of BTS's crossover song attempts, this is easily one of the best ones. Arguably the best one. For one, I think Coldplay are usually pretty damn good when it comes to electronic songs, and Chris Martin is a great singer, but for BTS, they actually get to sing in Korean. In the last 2 years, BTS finally got major American success by releasing all English songs in Dynamite and Butter. But while I still think they're decent songs, I do admit that I rated them way too high in my last few best lists. They were totally fine compositions on their own, but knowing how great BTS can be, those songs were compromises to cross over into the English market. Otherwise, it's nowhere near their best work. But with My Universe, they not only get to sing in their native language, but also give more heartfelt performances. While the verses themselves aren't all that long, it's the quality of their singing that really sticks out to me. Seeing as it's a Coldplay song first, there's not much room for line distribution amongst all the members, but V and Jungkook do the best with what little they're given. Whenever I think of some of my favorite BTS tracks, I think of songs like I Need You or Jungkook's solo song Euphoria. And what they show is that these guys are genuine artists who can nail the softer moments in songs. K-pop acts are always accused of being products of the machine, but BTS's success is 100% earned as their versatility in genre demonstrates the talent of their individuals. Hell, the fact that they weren't part of the K-pop Big Three and essentially built up their label to make it a Big Four speaks to their reach.
내 우주와 너 또 다른 세상을 만들어주는 girl.
When we get to the third verse, I love that J-Hope and Suga give more subdued performances. But what always gets to me is the pre-chorus by Jungkook.
우리는 너를 따라 이긴 밤을 수놓고 너와 함께 날아가. When I'm without you I'm crazy.
Todd in the Shadows always has what he calls his favorite 2 seconds in pop, and for me, my favorite 2 seconds in pop this year were the transition from Suga to Jungkook before the final chorus. As for my second favorite 2 seconds,
That bright infinity inside your eyes.
매일 밤 내게 날아가.
that would be the transition from the first verse with Chris Martin to Jungkook. Whenever BTS collaborates with a Western artist, they tend to have conflicting energies that make the collab feel forced. But Coldplay ended up being the perfect complement to them. I absolutely love this song. It's the pop track I listened to the most this year, and it perfectly combines the strengths of both acts. Chris Martin said he doesn't think they can ever top this song again, and I think he's right. Coldplay flew all the way to South Korea to make this work, and the effort was definitely felt. If this is the last time I get to talk about BTS for a few years, then this was an absolutely deserving pick for my #1 best hit song of 2022. Thank you so much for your patience. I apologize for not getting this video out in 2022, but I hope this was a nice send-off to Season 8 of my show. As per usual, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon who supported me over the past year or so. For just $1 per video, you can join my patron-only Discord server where we chat and chill, and at $2 per video, you get to vote on what songs I review for my series 2000s Childhood Pop. At $5 per video, you get to be listed in my Names of Fame, and at $10 per video, you get a personal shout through the heart along with Jason Semler and Prideful Zella. Once again, I'm Mr. 96. If you want to see more pop reviews, click the subscribe button below and tap that bell to be notified when I drop a new episode. The next video will be my top 5 most average hit songs of 2022, and that will kick off my 2023 season proper. Whether I get the video out in January or February is still up in the air as I start a new job soon, but unlike last year, at least I don't have COVID. Knocking on wood. Pop songs may come in numbers, but there's only one. 96.
너의 그 말 그 잔인한 말 가슴 아파.